ever since I got out of high school, and not love it and not stick it through because I love the business. I love giving back to the business. I love performing and I love people who are in that same mindset.
What's up, Bengal fans? It's your host, Joey Karni, and I want to thank you for clicking on this video. It was an amazing experience, and I can't wait for you to watch the full episode and enjoy it just as much as I did filming it. Now, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe down below to stay up to date with all the Angles activity right here on YouTube. Now enjoy the show.
Let's go, let's go!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Angle Podcast. With me today, one of the most legendary figures in really the world of professional wrestling, one of the greatest female superstars of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, Mickie James, how are you? And welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. First off, I appreciate your time. I know everyone's trying to get a piece of Mickie James right now, get all the questions in, especially Before EmPowerrr. So I know there's a lot of things to discuss, but I really do want to talk about, first off, EmPowerrr and how it's been so interesting to see really the build for this show play out on social media. I mean, how did that come about? Did you approach NWA? Did they approach you? How did that all stem?
Well, I think it's no secret that my husband is the real world's champion. And, I've watched the NWA and what they've been doing the whole time and been pretty much, cheerleading on the sidelines for Billy and for my husband and for the success of the NWA. Because it's, the NWA brand as a whole is so nostalgic and there's so much history there.
Yeah.
And you think about that, even going back to the chase and bringing wrestling back to the chase and the 73 years of NWA. That's already monumental in itself. So, I think it's just, I've known Billy a long time too, and he was there at Impact or at TNA at the time for, the first pay-per-view when I was there for that. I've known Billy and he's been my friend. So we would even have conversations within just dinner at the house, talking wrestling shop from their perspective and from my perspective where I was sitting. So now to be able to come over and head up the women's division and head up, well, especially as the executive producer on this pay-per-view and to have this platform and an opportunity to present and highlight and showcase women's wrestling. It's just fun and it's awesome. And I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm sure you get this question a lot, but you've been pulling for women's wrestling for, really your entire career. And now to be in a spot where you're the executive producer, how does it feel to be in that position?
It's great. It feels awesome. It's stressful. It's certainly stressful, but it is pretty awesome because I'm very much a perfectionist too, and I just kind of want to make sure that at the end of the day, every woman on the show and wrestling as a whole shines out of it, because it's a huge night. It's a huge night for us, and it's a huge night for NWA. But I really hope that it sets the bar of what's to come, and whether it be from us and other platforms and other companies. And I think the cool thing is that we have been able to work with AEW, work with Impact, and to kind of bring this night together on all platforms to really celebrate the women on the rosters. So,
and that kind of goes into my next question. You have women coming in from all over, really. And even to help you book the show, you brought in the likes of Gail Kim and Jazz. How hard is it to initially, scout for the best woman in the world where there really is no limits to where you can stop?
Yeah, that is, it is true, except for the fact that with the pandemic, it's a little harder with international talent. It's a lot harder. Yeah. But I think that I just trust these women's opinion. You think about Medusa, you think about Jazz, you think about Gail and what they've done in their own careers. And I think that they, are huge catalysts and building like this foundation of barrier breakers and changing that mold and changing that perception, because they all within their own right have made their own history, have their own legacies, or future Hall of Famers are Hall of Famers, or, it's just, there's so much. And I think we were all in different kind of what would you call it, eras of the
Era,
women's
yeah.
of the women's locker room as those times, and so we had our own like and I just think that it's interesting because we have such different backgrounds, but yet our love for wrestling and our purpose and our drive in wrestling has always been the same, and that is to be seen as and treated as one of the boys, as an equal, as we were. I never said I wanted to be a great women's wrestler. I just wanted to be a great wrestler, period. So yeah, and I think that's where we're at, so it's cool.
And we've had all women's events before with Impact and TNA, even with WWE with the Evolution pay-per-view.
Yep.
And fans, it's something that I think fans have wanted an encore for a really long time. And with WWE, they never got it. When you were in that locker room, was it something discussed amongst the women? I guess all superstars really, either a lot or at all.
Oh, of course. I think the hope across the board from the ladies was that it would, possibly be an annual event or something that we could do all the time. And, and even in the sense of a more female driven show for the network, because there was so much content going out on the network. But of course, we were all very excited, I think, across the board. And I still think that it did a wonderful job of celebrating the women in the history and women's wrestling as a whole. And it was just a great night to be a part of. But I think that the fans and the locker room were screaming for that second one, or forward,
just the consistency of it.
What could grow out of that moment. And just because it hasn't happened yet, I don't think that it won't happen. And so I just, you never know.
And during your time with WWE, you were told that women's wrestling doesn't sell, and Evolution was the lowest watched, I guess, pay-per-view of all time. And over the last few months, I mean, we've seen the likes of Charlotte Flair main eventing Raw nearly a month straight. I mean, what went through your mind when you were told this? I mean, this is not something you'd ever expect to hear.
Well, no, I don't say that, because I've heard a lot of things in wrestling, and I think at one time, especially when women's wrestling was more of it was presented more as a novelty, and it probably was not something that people would perceive to have like a marquee match. But since then, a lot of women have main evented the show, and now even main evented WrestleManias. And so I think that perception has changed. I think that from a corporate standpoint, that was a very corporate answer. And I feel, because the person who told me that and the person I was having the conversation with, I know genuinely was just trying to shoot with me and be honest with me, because we had so I appreciated that aspect. Like, I would rather someone just be honest and just say whatever it is than just kind of ho-hum around and never quite give you an answer, so I appreciated that, and I respected that from just a personal level. But at the same time, I was just like, wow. But I also looked it up, and it wasn't the lowest pay-per-view ever. So, and I go like, well, I think back and I go, we had so much television time to build to it and to get there. There's a lot of stuff that we could have done to build up that pay-per-view as well along the way. But I still had an awesome time in that pay-per-view too. So it's like, I hate to discredit it. It's just like, I was kind of mind blown, because it was really, for me at that moment, you have to think of like, I'd been trying to come back from this injury. I'd had like a little thing where I came back, and then, and I felt good and I felt great, and I still actively wanted to do stuff. But I think it was that last WrestleMania where it was just kind of a lot of defining moments for me, where I kind of go like, we're just on different, for me personally, as a performer, I think that we are on different like ideas of what I can assist in within the company. And that was unfortunate, but it's also okay. It's totally okay. So, it was just one of those, that was just one of those conversations that kind of validated my thinking in that moment. 'Cause I was like, wow. Yeah. Brutal honesty. But I'm used to a lot of brutal. Yeah. You have to be used to brutal honesty though. You really do. And so it wasn't like it was a shocking moment. It was just more of a, huh, okay,
Kind of
cool.
confirms everything that you're feeling and thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
No, I totally get it. And now you're with the NWA, and honestly, I feel this is like a perfect fit for you because the NWA embodies like wrestling and storytelling. I think to like its purest form, like the retro style, and obviously it's a plus to have your husband there.
yes,
When I spoke to Nick earlier this year,
most days it is,
right?
you know.
I had the opportunity to speak to Nick earlier this year, and he kind of spoke about trusting that locker room, even bringing your son there to show him how the proper way to handle business.
Right.
What intrigued you the most about the NWA?
I think it is that you know, when I think about the wrestling, the true wrestling that I fell in love with, or
Yeah,
when that fandom actually started, was watching NWA style, whether it was Georgia Championship Wrestling. It was watching that style of wrestling presented. And I think that throwback to the pureness of the wrestling product, and we like to say the word wrestling, you know, so it's like the pureness of that, um back to that old school. It kind of transcends generations. And I think um a lot of, you know, you can watch it with your kids, but you could also sit back and watch it with your dad and they can enjoy it because it was what they were watching with their fathers. And that, so that's the really cool, but to be able to deliver it in modern day
yeah,
and in this new era that obviously that we're in. And I think that's what also makes the NWA unique, is because we've stayed true to that and are not trying to do, you know, modern, like
yeah.
the wrestling that everyone else is trying to do and compete in. So it's not like we see ourselves as, you know, the competition, but more as like just wrestling in a different way, or the alternative,
Yeah.
if you will, you know. So yeah,
It stands alone in its own and
for
its
sure.
own style. That's why it's so intriguing and it's so cool to see, especially.
Yeah,
Um,
plus the promo, like as you think about it, and I just love those throwbacks of to the stick man and to the podium and to the straight down the lens promos, um, which we, you know, get away from so much, and trying
yeah,
to be more entertaining and or entertainment. But that was what, you know, captured me as a fan, is like being connected with that character, you know,
yeah.
and I felt like they were talking to me. So it's fun to be able to play with that. Yeah.
And during your career, I mean, you've been a part of I can't even countless uh, big moments and big stories. And for me, I'll never forget your program with Trish Stratus. That for me, during that 05, 06 time, I think I must have been like 13 or something like that.
Oh,
And for me, that was the first time really I was actually invested, or it seemed like the company was invested in a woman's story.
yeah.
I mean, really pushing towards, the whole crazy Mickie James thing and all
Right.
of the Stratus. It was
Yeah.
so fresh and so different. Do you have any like favorite stories from that time?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I was so you know, because that was, I was trying so hard to just deliver to the best of my ability. And I always do, but I think at that moment I was really, because this for me was the culmination of like I've been working so hard
Yeah,
for this moment, for this opportunity. I had several false starts on television, or thought I was going to debut, didn't happen. So the fact that I was able to kind of come up and try to create this character and pitch it, and uh, then for that to happen with Trish Stratus, who no doubt like one of the greatest women's champions of all time, but for me, being aligned with her in that story completely set me up for the rest of my career, as far as the legitimacy of where I was seen on the roster and
yeah,
as a champion and as a player in that, you know, championship series and all that stuff. And then even after and going and moving forward in my career. So I'm so grateful for that. But I loved that character so much, and
yeah,
I just took a lot of time to develop her and to like dive into her, to, you know, do that. And what made that so special is because of my relationship with Trish too, and to be able to, because I didn't know her prior to that story, you know,
oh,
like
wow,
so I think that's really like where our friendship, because we just bounced off each other and we had that like real great chemistry on
yeah,
television, where we just kind of bounced off each other really well. And the creative behind the scenes and the time that they took to like do the layers in the story before we got to those moments. That's really what it took, you know, what really helped invest so many people to where by the time we got to WrestleMania, you know, I was getting cheered and she was getting booed, which was
Yeah.
wild. And I don't think anybody expected that. I certainly didn't expect that, but it was a cool thing to be in the moment and happening. And even when I go back and I watch that match, it was so special because there's nothing like your first, right? Especially there's nothing like your first WrestleMania. And for me, that was like, like there was so many emotions in that moment, but I can see myself still when I'm watching, like get lost in those moments and just go like, still to this day, I can like pull off that energy because it was like so powerful and so amazing. And, you know, it's kind of, so it's just like, there's so many things that happened leading up to that and then out of that. But I think I was so in those, just like living my best life, that it was like every day was the best day.
Yeah, it was such a different story to what we've seen. And I think that's why the fans were so invested. It was actually like, wow, they're putting this much effort into the women. It was, I think for me, like, especially being a kid, it was like that first time you actually saw the effort put in from creative for the women.
Right. For a female character and to really like define who she is. And it really just, it was, God, what a blessing for me, you know. And I think that storyline still stands the test of time as one of the greatest storylines because of that. And a lot of women, they've Trish, Lita, you know, a lot of people had, up to that point, had done really intricate and well delved storylines, but they were often like romantic angles or different angles. It wasn't directly just on this, you know, female kind of partnership, if you will.
Of course. And you came back in 2016, aiding Alexa Bliss on SmackDown. But before that, you had a match with Asuka at NXT Takeover. Can you explain how that kind of came about? And were there any discussions to keep you in NXT?
There wasn't really any. That was more of a one-off. I think I felt like that was probably just meant to be a one-off, and I was excited to come back and do it. And to come back to NXT and to be asked to be there. Cause I think for me at that point, we were actually flying back to see Nick's parents in England. We were at the airport when I got the call. And when they asked me, and I was like, I really hadn't been, because I was a new mom and I was just I had kind of got to a place where I was like, I think I'm just going to step back from wrestling for a while. I think I'll still take appearances and stuff, but it's just, I don't think that like at that point I was like, I don't think I want to go back to Impact. I don't think I've tried with WWE to see if there was any interest or whatever. And so I'd kind of come to that place where I'm like, I'm good. I've done a lot. Like, I'm really good. I don't need to just keep wrestling for the sake of wrestling, you know? And that was ironically when they called me like,
wow,
hey, will you come back? And I was like, yes, of course I will. Of course I will. Because I thought it was the perfect way to kind of say, hey, thank you, you know, because I felt like it was like unfinished business there for me. It was like a bit of unfinished business there. And I wanted to be able to do that and kind of wrap it up for my fans at WWE and all that stuff. So it was
a great match. I mean,
it was an incredible match. And I think that, you know, Asuka is so talented. She's just amazing. And I'd never wrestled her before that moment. And I was really excited and I wanted to deliver for that match to, you know, and I was hoping to get that love back from the fans to kind of, if they remembered, and they did. And it was really cool. And I think it was honestly the response out of that match is what inspired, you know, and you know, the match itself is what inspired if I, you know, that ask if I wanted to come back full time.
Yeah. And I mean, there were so many opportunities during this last run to put gold around your waist. And I know it's not always all about the titles, but what do you think they could have done better during your last run?
Oh, man.
Was there anything at the top of your list that just...
No, I think I think that I wish I would have came in as hardcore country, and I think that was probably mostly on me. Maybe with people, whether I didn't think that they would do that because it wasn't their brand, it wasn't their character, where I kind of
course.
reinvented myself. But I think that I had some really cool moments when I was back. I really, really did, and I never once really fought to be the champion.
Yeah.
I never did. And there were certain things because I was coming at it with a different mindset. I'm thinking like it's cool to have one last run. I know that out of the end of this, I'll be able to put a button on my wrestling career and kind of go out the way that I want it to. Um, because I'm a mom now and I am 40 and I do want to be home a little more and perhaps transition behind the scenes and do something more in the vein that I'm doing now. Uh so I was looking at all of that. I think I was looking at it a much bigger picture as like whereas young Mickie James, who didn't have a son and was only about Mickie James' life, would have been like, oh, I need the championship and I need all these things. So I was very, I just wanted to be back and be a part of it because it was kind of magical and it was cool to be in the locker room with all this young crop of this ultra like talented women who
Yeah.
I could potentially have some amazing matches with and hopefully help them. So, you know, because the business is ever evolving and changing. And if there's ever anything that I could lean on them and give them advice for, or, or maybe they might inspire me to be even hungrier than I was before. So it's like, it was just cool. It was cool. And it was really, I was grateful to be able to do that. And sure, I have like wishes of, oh, I wish that we could have done something more here. I wish this would have been, or I wish I would have had the bow, but I'm not done. I'm still, a badass and I can still get it done in the ring, but now I can also lend a hand on the other side and hopefully elevate and do all of those things that I wanted for myself, for a couple other ladies. So it's cool.
Yeah. And earlier this year, obviously, you were released from WWE, and then blossoms the trash bag scandal. I know we can't really not talk about that, but
Yeah. Okay.
it was very eye opening, I think, for fans also because it's been happening for years and no one really paid any attention to it.
Yeah, well, because I don't think it was. I don't think it was a malicious act. Like, hey, we
No,
think you're a
no,
bunch of trash. I just think it was just a thoughtless thing, and it was obviously the symbolism of it all.
yep,
And I don't think that we often, it's just a lot, and it's a lot, and especially when you're on the first half, like a lot of the girls that are getting, their first run when that first time when I left in 2010, I was devastated. Like it was a very devastating thing. And then on top of that, because I felt like my dream was getting taken away, and then to get my stuff in a trash bag on top of that, it really did make me feel like that's what they thought about me. So
yeah,
then to see that 10 years later, it's still coming the same way, it's just like, you guys just don't think like it. And it's not saying you guys, it's just whoever boxed this up and stuff like
yeah,
that, or that mentality of like, it really is like such a thoughtless thing. Once you're gone, it's like out the door. But I don't think it was like a malicious thing, or it was ever
yeah. It was
like a
just done to
malicious
be
thing.
done. Yeah,
Yeah, it was just, oh, plus you think about it, the drawers are in the female locker room, and I don't think a lot of the men have these things. So in the locker room, there's these drawers that we keep a lot because women have to wear a lot more options of clothes, whether it be street clothes, gears, all these things. So it's probably just a matter of pulling the drawer out and dumping it in
yeah,
something to put it into this box. But it's, I posted it because I was like, oh, on par, and it got way more traction
I mean, it
than
went
I
viral.
thought. But here's the thing is that, and I've said this, but we get so humbled, or you get so, there's so much. It's just a very, it's a very harsh business. It's a hard business, and it's not as harsh as it used to be, definitely. So it's certainly not the worst thing that's ever been said or done
Yeah,
in my career, and I'm sure people have had worse along the way, men and women alike. So it wasn't like I was ultraly offended, but I think that we become so used to being kind of half
yeah,
offended that it didn't seem as big of a deal to me as it did to the audience, they were like, whoa. And it reminded you like, oh, actually, this isn't cool. this
Yeah.
is not cool. But yeah.
How did it feel to see it like go viral? I mean, and even like Triple H and Stephanie like comment on social media, like it went crazy.
It went viral quick. Yeah, and the irony is that all happened so quickly, and I was also in the middle. I had a photo shoot scheduled that day, so I
Wow.
really had posted it before it came. The first box came as I was walking out the door, and the second one arrived after I was already gone. And so it happened so quickly that then once that happened, and then I'm going to shooting and doing all the stuff, and I realize I've missed a bunch of calls and I've missed a bunch of. I go, what the hell's? Yeah, it blew up. It blew up, and yeah, it was quite interesting. It was quite a day. It was quite a couple days.
I can imagine.
Yeah, but you know what? It's like I was like, damn it. Now it's like to be known for the trash bag incident. But however, the good thing that came out of that incident is that will never happen to anybody else, and they'll never be able to, made feel like that. Everybody else is going to get their stuff in Chanel, and that's all right.
Yeah.
And no, but in all honesty, like to have Vince call and apologize and have that conversation with him, as far as that felt like good for me, and that was really all I needed, I think. And I knew that it wasn't a malicious thing, and it was just unfortunate.
And it shows really like how much of a leader you actually are. And it was badass to see it like stand up for literally everyone who's ever had that. And for the people who just, didn't want to say anything or didn't want to stir the pot or anything like that. And you just stood up for everybody. And it just shows like the true leadership that you have, especially in the wrestling business. So kudos for that.
Thank you.
It was just.
I felt like it was more of a smart ass, but I appreciate that.
Yeah, I guess everyone will have their own view on it. So all these months later, I mean, I'm sure you've gone through the motions of, of it all, really, the release and everything. How do you feel today about everything that's happened?
I'm good. I feel good. I do. And obviously I'm still sad about it. I still miss everybody there. I still have those things, but I think I also have a new opportunity to kind of do things, and I have my power back to do things how I want to do it and how I want to see it. And I'm cool with that. And so I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the future. I think we have a lot going on in the NWA, and I have a lot going on with my music and elsewhere. And so it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. I just got to get through this weekend first.
Of course. And I'm starting to wrap it up here, but I want to ask you this question. Do you think that the reputation of right now of what is going on with WWE, seeing how the fans feel that, it's disheartening to see legends such as yourself treated a certain way, whether it's bad booking or just the trash bag stuff, do you think that affects talent wanting to go to WWE, like to pursue a career at WWE, seeing all that happen?
No. I think that at the end of the day, I think it affects people on different levels in the sense of how they feel about a certain thing. But at the end of the day, it's all business. And if you are a professional athlete or artist or actor in any industry, in any business, you are going to shoot for the pinnacle of what you deem as the pinnacle of that success. And right now, and it always has been, they have been the market leader and all that. I mean, even myself, when I was coming up the ranks and working TNA at the time and Ring of Honor, my dream was still to be WWE Women's Champion. Like that was the end, that was the goal. And so I think that everyone, is vying for that position and wants to get there. And it's cool to see, to have impact and to be able to go there and have your freedom and kind of do things differently, because everybody presents wrestling differently. And now AEW coming into the mix, and really presenting wrestling and giving people options and places to go. It's pretty amazing. So that's more exciting, is that there's, within the NWA, obviously we're here, I'm here. There's options and there's opportunities to kind of do that, but I don't think it's going to stop people from wanting to be in the WWE and be
Yeah.
women's champions. And I hope it doesn't, because there is a lot of history there. There is a lot of love there. I still am grateful for everything I've done there. And regardless of, how people perceive it, if I come off, I'm just brutally honest and a smart ass sometimes, honestly. So if you don't like it, it's okay. I get it. But at the same time, I get it. But at the same time, I think because that's what we've been missing for a while, and to now really have platforms where they aren't the only one. That's the really cool thing. And I think everyone's kind of building up to where that's being realized across the board.
Yeah.
And it's just exciting. Wrestling is exciting right now.
It's awesome to be a pro wrestling fan right now.
For sure.
Absolutely. And to be a superstar. I mean, it's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. And now with Forbidden Doors being knocked down, and all of those things. And, we still are independent contractors. I think that's, the real thing. And what kept the business hot and alive for so long was when there were territories and you would see cross promotional, or you would see a wrestler jump from one organization over to another and show up in another territory or brand, and it kept that character and those storylines fresh and exciting. So I think that to be able to go back to some of that stuff and lean on some of that stuff is cool as well. Because you just never know what to expect. And yeah.
And for all the younger talent that are looking to kind of follow in the footsteps of Mickie James, what do you think is the biggest takeaway that you've gotten from your time, I could say, in WWE, because you've experienced a lot there? What's the biggest takeaway that you've gotten from there?
I would say don't doubt yourself. Don't doubt yourself, or remember how you got to the dance, because I think that, you can go through a wave of emotions, and it's, the highest of highs and the lowest of lows in those times. And it's like in those low moments, because it's like we all do it for the rush and for the fans, and, for the ability to perform our arts and our crafts, or however you perceive it, and to go out there and kick ass and shine bright. Like everybody that's there wants to be a star and wants to be there and wants their segment to be the best. And I can understand how sometimes it can get frustrating, because it is a Ferris wheel sometimes. So just never lose sight of that, of how you got there and why you were chosen to be there. And so because that always shines through, for sure.
Of course. And across the board, there's a plethora of women all over the world. Do you have anyone in mind that you can see as being the next like iconic women's superstar in professional wrestling?
Oh, there's so many, and I feel like that's unfair just to say
Right.
one. I mean, I think obviously of the generation right now, there's Sasha, there's Bailey, there's Becky, there's Charlotte. I definitely think all of those ladies, Natty, and Tamina. I think all of these women are going to obviously have their own, marking their history books, for women's wrestling across the board. Britt Baker, I think, is killing it in AEW and doing an amazing job. There's just that's just it. There's a vast amount of talent out there. So, yeah.
I get it. It's hard to choose one for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I saw a video a few months ago. You were, I guess you were on Busted Open with Dave LaGreca and Tommy Dreamer, and you were in tears talking about what happened with, the WWE. And honestly, as a wrestling fan, it broke my heart to see that like how you were feeling. And I want you to know that wrestling fans adore you. They love you. You're respected and valued, and whatever comes your way next, is going to be everything you deserve and more. So
thank you, Joey.
As a wrestling fan,
I cry on TV, and I'm a very passionate, emotional person. And I do cry often, and I hate it. Especially Tommy makes me cry every time.
Right.
I do. I just love wrestling, and I have always loved wrestling. I mean, you can't dedicate your whole life to something.
Yeah.
Like, I say whole life. I mean, ever since I got out of high school, and not love it and not stick it through, because I love the business. I love giving back to the business. I love performing, And I love people who are in that same mindset and want to perform, and with me. I just love the art. I love this business so, so much. And so I've always wanted to be a part of it and to give back to it and to just, shine that. So, I can't help it. I just,
I get it. I get it.
stupid passion. Yeah.
Now, for all the fans listening and watching, where could they find more of Mickie James? Where could they get in on all the action for EmPowerrr and NWA?
Oh, well, I'm so glad you asked. You can go to mickiejames.com and you can find all of my social media handles there. You could go to nationalwrestlingalliance.com and find out all the things about NWA, about Fight TV, about this amazing pay-per-view going back to the chase, EmPowerrr kicking off the weekend, and NWA 73, which you can get a bundle for, boom, 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 on Fight TV. And yeah, it's going to be an amazing weekend. And let's see. Oh, Gaw TV, you can watch that every Wednesday. Myself, Lisa Marie, SoCal Val. We just did a huge rundown with David LaGreca from Busted Open about the whole card for EmPowerrr for this week's episode. And yeah, if you want to get jacked and stacked, my little baby muscles there, legacysubs.com.
Awesome. I am so excited to see what goes on with EmPowerrr, NWA, and really just excited to see what you do going forward, because we all know it's never a miss. So I want to thank you for taking the time to come on and talk. And honestly, it's been an honor and pleasure.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Joey.
Thank you, and good luck at EmPowerrr.
Have a good one. Thank you.
You too.
And before you go, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down below to stay up to date with the next big interview right here on the Angle Podcast.